evening, everybody, and welcome to Bible study tonight for OTM, which is on the OTM platform, YouTube, as well as Instagram this evening. So we started off week one talking about in the studies with Robert Morris and Beyond Blessed. So week one was actually pre-recorded on, I believe it's on the Old Time Ministries page as well as YouTube. It wasn't streaming on Instagram last week, so for those of you who missed that, you can check out the YouTube channel as well as the Facebook On Time Ministries page regarding that. So we're gonna go ahead and get started since I got off this Zoom call early this evening. So chapter 2, more than a budget. If you have ever rented or stayed by yourself in someone else's home, such as on vacation, you have probably experienced the feeling of being a stranger there. Unless you had been there several times before, you have had to find out where things were and might even have been hypersensitive to certain items or areas. You made yourself a home, but the owner's pictures on the wall, the personal items in each room, and even the content of the pantry might have reminded you that this was not your home. There were guests in that home. You slept in the bed, sat on the couch, cooked in the kitchen, and watched the TV. Most likely, you even shared Wi-Fi for internet access. You were careful not to break anything or leave a mess behind, especially if there was a damaged deposit. The owner would return if you left it spotless. When you rent a home through an agent like Airbnb or VRBO, you as a renter are rated according to how you act while you are there and the condition in which you leave the property. You are expected to treat it as well as or better than the owner would. If you do not, your renting privilege might be restricted in your opinion. Your options limited. If you get enough bad ratings, you might have your privilege revoked entirely. So the first question that we're going to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, have you ever stayed in someone else's home, either as a guest or through an agency? If so, how do you think and feel about the property during your stay? Were you especially careful of your surroundings, and did you feel a sense of responsibility? So ladies and gentlemen, anytime you may stay in someone's home as a guest, you don't feel comfortable because number one, it's not your home. Number two, it's not your property. You have to be very respectful and very mindful how you treat people's things, because people have rules and regulations, and they definitely want you to respect their property and make sure you clean up after yourself. Bathrooms, bed, don't leave no trash. It's not your home. You have to treat it like you're renting it, and you're there for X amount of days or weeks, whatever the situation may be. And that is very difficult because you're going to feel like on pins and needles, because you don't want to mess up anything, you don't want to destroy anything, you don't want to make yourself comfortable because you know you're not at your own home. So you want to do the best you can to be responsible enough to say, okay, I'm a guest here, I have to take care of it, this is not my place of residence, and I definitely need to be mindful of how I treat somebody else's home. Okay, so kind of let that question just sink in. So I'm going to read it to you one more time. Have you ever stayed in someone else's home, either as a guest or through an agency? If so, how did you think and feel about the property during your stay? Were you especially careful of your surroundings? Did you feel a sense of responsibility? Okay, so next one. If you have ever stayed in a home like this, can you still imagine the thoughts and feelings of being a stranger in another person's home? Explain. For me, I experienced that. You have to be careful because people, like I said, have rules and regulations, right? And you have to be careful how you keep their home. You can't make it your home because it's not your home. You have to be responsible and mindful to what you do in people's homes. And even in like hotels or even places that you're renting, make sure that you keep it clean, making sure you make sure that you keep it organized, so that way, okay, I can't get too comfortable because I know I don't really stay here, and I can't be doing all this weird stuff because it's not come from my home. So I have to keep that in the back of my mind. And a lot of us sometimes forget, but you have to remind yourself, hey, this is not my home. I need to remember my place and respect it. Okay? So that's something to kind of think about in question 2. Number 3. Few people understand that abundance is a far tougher test of character than property. Do you agree with this statement? I'm going to leave that out there in the open, okay? Few people understand that abundance is a far tougher test of character than property? And that's a question we should really think about. And I'm going to leave that open for anybody to just answer. And even I'm going to even leave that blank for myself to kind of make that decision to think in my mind. Because we're going to kind of come back to that question next week. Not next week. Next month. Because this is not some question you can just jump in and just dive in. You got to really think about that. Like, what does that really mean to you in your life? Okay? Jesus' Parables is the 25th chapter of Matthew. Is where we will find valued examples of faithful stewardship in the operation of God's economics. For the kingdom of heaven is like man traveling to a far country, who call his own servants and deliver his goods to them. And to one he gives 5 talents, and to another, to each according to his ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and made another 5 talents. And likewise, he who had received 22 grains and 2 more also. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of the servant came and settled accounts with them. So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, said, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I've gained 5 more talents beside them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You are faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. He also who received 2 talents came and said, Lord, you delivered me to 2 talents. Look, I've gained 2 more talents beside them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, repenting where you have not sowed, and gathered where you have not scattered seeds. And I was afraid and went hid your talents in the ground. Looking there, you have what is yours. But his Lord answered and said to him, You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I will reap where I have not sowed, gather where I have not scattered seeds. So you ought to deposit my money with the banker at my coming, and I will have received back my own with interest. So take the talents from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gasping of teeth. Okay, everybody, so we have questions here. So the first question says, why does the master entrust his wealth talents to 3 servants in the first place, and how much was a talent worth? So when we go back into the scripture, ladies and gentlemen, it talks about how each servant got a portion of money. So we're going to refer back. Okay, so he gave 5 talents to another 2 and to another 1. So each of them had 5 talents, which is money, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, and how much was the talents worth? So we're going to go back to that. So each talent. So then he said he had received the 5 talents and went and traded them and made another 5 talents. Likewise, he received 2 gain, 2 more also. So they gained more money for the 2 individuals. And I want to think about this concept, like how much was a talent worth? So when you think about talents in times of money, we're going to dig a little deeper, ladies and gentlemen, and talk about this. Give me a few minutes because we're going to dig a little deeper. want to share the screen with you all to show you what this looks like. Okay, so this is what this looks like. Okay, see what it looks like. And OT, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you all so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is what it looks like. Okay. But this is a concept to think about. So the question is, how much was a talent? How much was talent's worth? I'm going to start sharing my screen. And that's a very good question, which I don't have an answer to. Okay? Which is a very good question that I want to share with you all. For me to just say, oh, I don't know the answer, it's okay because I'm still learning. Okay? I know what talents are as money, but how much was talents worth? And I'm going to come from my own perspective, because this was written years and thousands of years ago. Talents can be a lot of money. So for 5 talents, that can be $5 that can be worth $5 or $500 or $5,000. It depends on how much that money increases. So we're going to dig a little deeper about talents and how this really looks. And I want to touch on this and talk about money and budgeting. But that just gives you insight, so we can come back to that question too. Even I don't have the answers, so just being honest. It's money, I know that. But how much is that worth? Woo! That I don't have the answer to. Okay? So we're going to come back to that question next month. So I'm going to make sure I come back to this question here, as well as the question regarding abundance. Some questions you need to leave unanswered until you get the right answer. That part. So we're going to move right along to the next question. We don't see any communication between the servant and the master when the master leaves. How do you think each servant felt about the goods they received at the time? Might they have been nervous, excited, worried? How do you think you would have felt in the same situation? So I put myself in this. I would have been happy because I saved. I would have been worried because I wouldn't know when the next portion is going to come in. And then I'll be between happy. I will be a little nervous, excited, and worried at the same time. And how does that work for me? So I'll be like, okay, I'm a little nervous. I don't know how it's going to go. Excited and be like, okay, yes. And then that worriness come in. So this situation will have me in different categories, okay? I don't know how everybody else would feel about that in terms of their own communication and how would they work and how would that work for them. But that will just be for me personally. So next question is, the master gave to each according to his ability. At some point, we are all in the same position the master was in. When you have had the opportunity to diligently responsible financial or otherwise to people in a different amount based on their ability, perhaps to children, friends, or co-workers, how did you judge what level of responsibility to entrust them with? What did you learn about these people based on their experience? So what did I learn about dealing with people overall? That everybody has different experience, everybody has different talents, everybody has different gifts and different things they're good at. And I've learned that this person may be good at writing, this person may be good at hand, this person may love to cook, this person may love to design, this person may love to just observe, this person may love to be speaking and being engaging. So everybody has different talents and different purpose. How much they're worth is a whole different conversation, because everybody may want the same amount, but everybody has different levels of expertise, so they may not get paid the same amount. Is it fair? It's called life. You have to take the good and the bad, the ugly and the sad. Okay? The next point. People often think the quality of stewardship is based primarily on budgeting and debt level. In that, what this particle is demonstrating. What is the real important increase that God is seeking when He stewards our time, gifts, and relationships? So this question right here, ladies and gentlemen, is, when God has given you time, gifts, and relationship, how are you valuing that? How are you valuing your the time that God's giving you? How have you valued your gifts? How did you value your relationship? A lot of times we always think we have time. Every time we think this is it. And when you take time and realize that, hey, I'm a good steward, that means I've taken care of this time I have. I've taken care of the gifts. I've taken care of the relationship to the best of my ability. And when you look at these concepts, ladies and gentlemen, you're like, okay, the time that God has given me, I appreciate it. The gift has given me, I finally got to a place that I'm using it. The relationship that I have built, I'm really taking full control and enjoying every aspect of it. And these things start to resonate in you and say, man, okay, I'm doing the time and using it wisely, and the gifts that I have, I'm sharing them with other people, the relationships I've connected with, I'm learning how to be understanding and diligent with it. When these things start to make a lot more sense to you, you'll start to understand this factor. So being good stewardship is how you manage your money, how are you taking care of this, how are you budgeting, how are you elevating, how are you doing these different things in your life. It's simply the fact that, hey, I learned these different techniques. I've learned these different abilities. I've learned how to put all these things in order over time. And these are not something that you just say, okay, I'm going to get it right. You got to learn over and over again. It's an ongoing learning process, ladies and gentlemen, where you have said, okay, I messed up today, I'm going to start back over tomorrow. Repeating the process over and over again until you finally got it. Okay? The next question. God also entrusts us with people. You have been or will be entrusted to parents or adult guardians, teachers, coaches, or other mentors as their stewardship responsibility. Some will be excited stewards of you, and others may not be. I relate a story of an evangelist who stewarded me poorly. How would you rate some of the people who have stewarded you? Were there some that were particularly good as a stewardess? How about others that may have been unwisely stewarded, like the example I gave you explained? So this question here is basically talking about stewardship. Were they good caretakers? Caretakers. Or did they take good care of you? Did they not give you the best advice? What are some of the stories and adventures that has happened in your own life? Are some of these things good, or some of these things not so good? How do you feel? Did it make you feel sad, angry, mad, indifferent? Whatever the situation be, just kind of think through that question and let that just sink into you, everybody. Okay? That's something you have to really dig deep inside and say, hey, did I experience that in my life? Did this happen in my life? How do I feel right now? Okay? The next question, how do you break the cycle of bad stewardship? Do you have some examples from your own experience where you have reversed that cycle? So this question here is something to think about too. Basically, when you have dealt with something that wasn't a good situation, you have learned from that experience and start to push a little bit further to a better direction. When you learn from bad stewardship experience, that gives you a better sense to be a lot more cautious and a lot more vigilant and a lot more aware of these events happening in your life. Okay? Clearly, because one, you didn't expect it to happen, it just happened, and now you know the ins and outs of situations that don't really feel good. It's kind of like a red flag that's thrown out there, and that red flag that's thrown out there that will protect you and guard you by saying, hey, this is something that I really need to be aware of, because I've experienced bad stewardship before and I don't want to go down that road again. And when you've experienced that, you already know the flags, the warning signs that something don't add up or don't make any sense. You'll clearly see what the deal is with that. Continue with this question. But why do you judge your brother? Or why do you show contempt for your brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. For it is written, as I live, said the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to God. So then each of us shall give accountable of him to God. This is Romans chapter 14, verse 10 and 12. So basically, you should not judge your fellow brothers and sisters about some of the actions, and even tells you in Romans chapter 14, verse 10 and 12, every knee has to bow and every tongue shall confess of everything they are held accountable for. Okay? That's something to really think about. Let that just register. Romans chapter 14, verse 10 and 12. Let that resonate into you. Let that say, man, I've had this bad experience, but maybe they didn't know any better. Maybe they wasn't taught the proper way and they didn't know how to handle it. They was taught the way they were taught. You have to think about it outside the box sometimes. The master in this parable came to settle a financial account, verses 19. Evenly, however, all accounts, not just financial, will be settled. Look at your life right now. How would you honestly judge the quality of your stewardship overall? Would it be more like good and faithful servants, Matthew chapter 25, verse 23, or the unprofitable servant in verse 28 and 30 explain? So 25 and 23 talks about the one who is doing right. Then in the next part of the verse, it talks about the one who's not prosperous. So when you think about these two scriptures, how do these two scriptures kind of line up? So we're going to go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, and go to Matthew 25. Excuse me, everybody. Matthew 25. Verse 23, and then we're gonna kind of read this here. So Matthew 25 verse 23 says, his master replies, well done, good faithful servant. You have been faithful with few. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. So in the first part of this, ladies and gentlemen, it talks about you have been faithful with just a little bit. So by you being faithful and good, you're going to be put in charge of many things because of your faithfulness. Now we're going to switch the turn and go to verse 28 and 30. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have abundance. That means more. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them, and thrown the worthless servant outside into the darkness, where they will be weeping and gasping of teeth. So in this particular part of the scripture, ladies and gentlemen, it talks about the one who has gotten 10 bags. Now, pay attention. It had a bag of gold. It had 10 bags. Those who are doing right will have abundance. Those who are not doing right will be thrown out to the darkness because they weren't honest about the things that they're doing. So verse 25 and 23 talks about this is what happened when you are faithful of the little things, you'll elevate. And then 28 talks about you're faithful this, you'll get abundance. But if you don't do right, this is the end result of your actions. Okay? So we're going on to the next question. Jesus in Matthew chapter 6 verse 20 says, encourage us to lay up treasure in heaven. This is like to an eternal retirement account. What do you think your eternal retirement account looks like? Are you ready to become a better steward to build your eternal retirement account, and how? Now this is deep, ladies and gentlemen. Eternal account. That means, are you a good stewardship that God has done great things for you? And what that means is everything, oh my goodness, that you are doing here, have you really gotten to that place in your life that you are thinking about, hey, what is my internal account, my internal retirement account looks like? How does my balance look? Is it negative or is it positive? Is it have more withdrawals or more deposits? How many deposits have you put in, thank you, Holy Spirit, and how many withdrawals have you taken out of that? How many things have been built up and how many things have been taken out? Let's think about this now. Eternal retirement account. What does that look like in your life? How much you done deposit into that? How much have you built over time? How much that you still have to build in order to get to that place? You have to think about the value of where you're trying to go when it's time for you to leave here. And this is one of them deep conversations, like, have I did everything that God has asked me to do? Have I been obedient? Have I been humble? Have I been doing all this work and building up my eternal retirement account so high, so when I do get to heaven, my God, I will be able to sit pretty and praise and worship God. This is a conversation we definitely have to think about. This is not an easy question to say, oh, I don't know what that is. I'm glad you asked. So we're going to kind of think about this a little bit. Like, whoa, what is this about? This is a deep conversation, ladies and gentlemen, but we have to really think like that in the times we live in. And, you know, it's entirely, it's important. So this is something you kind of really want to think about. Do some research on it. Look at Matthew chapter 6, verse 20, and let that just resonate into your spirit. Like, what does that look like for me? How does that look like for me? And that's just some questions you should ask yourself. All right. The one-talent steward told the master, I knew you to be a hard man. He was afraid of his master. For many believers, the root of their ability to handle money and material position like stewards is rather than the owners in the simple lack of trust in God. How about you search your heart for your true feeling about how you view God? Read the story of the lost or prodigy son, Luke chapter 15, verse 11 and 32. Describe how you feel now and what change you may need to make in your rethinking attitude. So we're going to go through Luke chapter 15 verse 11 and 32 together, everybody. You can always reread that scripture and refer back to it, everybody. And when you refer back to that, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about this story. This is talking about the prodigy son. So we're going to go ahead and read this here. Here we go, everybody. So actually, I want to share my screen with you all this evening on time, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about the prodigal of larger son in this conversation. Okay, so let me see if I can make it bigger. Can I? Maybe can we? There we go. So we're going to read it from the New International Version. So everybody on IG, turn with me to Luke chapter 15, verse 11 and 32, the prodigals of the lost son. Jesus continued, there was a man who had 2 sons. The young one said to his father, give me my share of estate. So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the young son got together all he had, set off for a distant country there, squared his wealth in wild living. After he spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of the country who sent him to his field to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to the servant, quickly, bring the best robe, put it on, put a ring on his finger, and sat on his feet. Bring the fat calf and kill it. Let have a feast and celebrate. For the Son of Man was dead and alive. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the oldest son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. Your brother has came here, and your father has killed the fat calf because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered him, look, all these years I've been slave for you and never disobeyed your order. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squared your property with prostitutes came home, you killed the fat calf for him. So what's going on here, ladies and gentlemen, is now the first son, they had 2 sons, the prodigy son. So the 2 sons in the story, right? They end up getting this money and they end up dividing it. So the younger son went buck wild and had a amazing time, and all of a sudden he fell short and life got hard, and he ended up working in this place where they didn't treat him very well, and then he had to really humble himself and go back to his father. And little did he know that his father has been waiting for him to come back home, while the oldest son has been doing everything that was asked of him and didn't get any of that kind of love and compassion and love in return. And you can look at both of these scenarios of these stories. That's hers. That's Lori's one. look at both of these stories, how the younger son felt helpless and worthless, but daddy had love and compassion and did everything to make him happy. Then the other son had this anger spirit because he done everything but didn't feel appreciated for all the hard work he did all those years. So you see how that song looked like? How one son was doing everything and didn't disobey him, but got treated unfairly, while the other one was disobeying him but ended up being praised. See how that sounds, and how the father had compassion for the one who did him wrong, and how the other one really felt like he wasn't fully appreciated. So let this story just resonate into you, everybody. Let Luke chapter 15 verse 11:32 just kind of understand where that come from, and it makes you feel like, okay, even though the young son did wrong, his daddy still had compassion. But then you had the older son who was very angry about what his brother had did, and he felt like he didn't get appreciated. So it was like a no-win situation there. It was like one son who did everything possible felt some type of way. The other one felt like he wouldn't be forgiven, but it was the complete opposite. Okay? So I have a little bit of one little quote I want to read to you all before I end Bible study tonight. Oh, man. Key quotes. It is the one who is faithful with a little who is ultimately entrusted with more. This is just as true of people as it is of money and possession. Truly wise stewardship involves so much more than just following a budget. Being a wise steward of a great king actually means bringing increase to the ruler's kingdom. It is ultimately wouldn't be about money, it will be about souls. Here is wonderful news. No matter what kind of steward you've been up to this point in life, you're not stuck in that category. A wrong view of God will eventually lead you to a wrong approach. So the stewardship of things He will entrust to you. So this quote will just resonate into you, ladies and gentlemen. So the book we'll be reading for the rest of this year, Bible study session, is Beyond Blessed by Robert Morrison, which is a God's perfect plan to overcome all financial stresses. So this book we'll be talking about. So we'll be back on the first, the second, and third Wednesday of each month at 8 p.m. until the middle of August, and then we'll be back on at 7:30 a.m. Everybody, 7:30 p.m. for On Time. So we'll be on On Time Ministries Facebook page, YouTube page, and IG page the second and third Wednesday of each month. Make sure you tune in this upcoming Sunday at 9:30 a.m. for the children's service. This will be the first children's service for On Time Ministry. So make sure parents and guardians, you have your babies from 0 to 18. The 18, 13 that can be on their own devices to tune in. This is going to be exciting and epic, and I'm very excited to partake in this particular service for our babies and our youth. So parents, make sure you have the babies on here. You have kids 0 to 8. Make sure they tune in. You can always watch the replay of it. So I'm just very excited about what I'm getting ready to do this Sunday, because it's about the kids and the love for God. Oh man, I'm just very excited about this service. This is something new and something fresh, and I can't wait to do it. Okay, so I love you all. Have an amazing and a blessed Wednesday night. True Solitude 1000 pre-recorded message of the mental exercise will be posted at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow morning for you all to tune in. On Time IG, I'll see you all on Sunday, 9:30 sharp for the children's service. I love you. God bless you. All right, On Time on Facebook and YouTube. I will be on Sunday at 9:30 a.m. for the children's service. So make sure you have the babies on here from 0 to 18 years old. It's a lot of content that'll be shared. So we'll be on we'll be on this Sunday and next Sunday, and then I'll be on at 11 a.m. for Sunday service for the general ministry for the congregation. It's a lot, but to God be the glory. God is still in the blessing business, everybody. So I will not be back on until Sunday. I have pre-recorded message of the mental exercise that will be shared on the True Solitude 1000 page on tomorrow. So I just appreciate all your love and support for On Time Ministry, everybody. Have an amazing and a blessed evening, ladies and gentlemen. I love you all, and take care of yourself. Good night.